What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Southern U Podcast, where we try to educate landowners in the South on all things land related. Today, we are down a man. The AL Deer legend is not with us right now. He's off doing other...
I think he's cooking fish at church.
He may be. I think he's at a fish fry or something like that. But Jeremy, you guys know Jeremy Ferguson, Tut Land and Wildlife Consulting Services. And my name's Taylor. I'm just some guy. But
all things marketing.
Yeah, all things non-academic. But anyways, yeah, we're to say that we are throwing this thing together today, y'all. We kind of got the cards stacked against us. Let time creep up on us. Everybody's busy. Hunting season's right around the corner. I tried to do some yard work yesterday, and if you can't tell already, I got all the
sinus
all,
funk.
all the funk, all the mucus in the sinuses. So y'all bear with me. It sounds like I'm talking through my nose. It's because I am. But today got a pretty cool show though, because we polled our audience on Instagram and asked you guys what you wanted to have us cover in the coming weeks, and during hunting season, that sort of stuff, what things you'd like for us to spend some time talking about, and that's what we're about. Whatever you guys are interested in and are trying to find more information about, we want to try to speak to those things as much as we can, if we know how to. So you guys sent in some really good stuff, and I think what we're probably going to do is break this up into two different shows. But for now, we're going to kind of take about half of these that were sent in and see if we can't put together a show from them. But it's kind of random. It bounces all over the place because there's a lot of different things that you guys had submitted. And that's a good thing, too, because we really like kind of doing a little bit of everything ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I do have at least one resident biologist in the room with us. So we can bounce some stuff off of him.
See if we can get this brain to come alive.
That's right.
This afternoon.
Well, he is a year older now. I don't know if we had recorded the show since his birthday, but it's
I can't remember.
It's like 41-year-old brain, so we gotta.
It's not working very well.
So,
fortunately, it works better than part of the rest of my body that's all broken and twisted.
That's right. Same here. Wish my sinuses would work. I wish my nose would work. So y'all bear with me. But unless there's anything else to talk about, actually, you know what? There is one thing before we jump in. It is, as of today, it's October the 6th. So in 8 days, our podcast will be 1 year old. So,
nice.
Pretty cool. And I just want to say this before we get going. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for interacting with us, engaging with us on social, and letting us know what we're doing well and
what we're doing wrong.
Yeah, what we're doing wrong. You guys you're not bashful about that either. You make sure and let us know when we're doing stupid stuff too, or if you disagree with the opinions.
I mean, it's been fun.
It has been fun.
It is very stressful because we all have more than we can do, and we added this on top of it. But it has been fun. I guess some of the comedy that comes along with me and Matt trying to do something like this,
yes,
it's made it entertaining.
It has,
or at least given me more ways to make fun of Matt.
Which is really what this thing's about. If you haven't figured that out,
No question.
We just want a new way to
way
to rip on Matt.
Pick at Matt. We're gonna go with it,
especially on days like today where he's not here to defend himself.
That's right.
So
of course he'll be the moron of the group that shoots 140, 150 inch deer opening day of deer season.
Absolutely, yeah, you count on it. Of course, it helps when they're in your backyard too.
It does. Yeah.
But
he don't tell anybody about all those high fences he's shooting over there.
Matt can't.
Shots fired.
Matt can't rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
Oh man! But all that to say, thank you guys. We really appreciate you, and we do have some cool stuff coming up. Specifically, if we can make this work, and by we I mean me, because I'm like the only one that would really have to work hard to make it happen. Everybody else is good. But we may have an opportunity to do some stuff in the month of December that would be really, really stinking cool if I can just pull it off and get there. But
Brittany, if you're watching or listening, we need him for about 6 days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 6 days is about what it takes.
It's hard to do it for less than that. So, because of the location. But we'll let you in on some of that stuff as we get closer. But right now, we're getting geared up for deer season in Alabama. It opens up in, about a week, or a little more.
Look, right now, I could care less. It is 90-something degrees out there.
Yeah, I know. We got a taste of false fall there for a little bit, and it was nice. But
the opening day of dove season was phenomenal.
Yep.
We got down to, say opening day, it was opening weekend. But we got down to Dr. Kane's farm, and that morning it was 52 degrees.
Yes.
I tell you, RL and I have been to Kansas the last few days, and it was really nice up there.
Mm-hmm.
High temps in the mid 70s, lows in the low 50s.
That'll give you the itch.
That does. Yeah, if it was that temperature here, it would be game on.
Yes.
But when I walk outside and immediately just whole body sweat, I'm done.
I know it. Well, and it's funny because this is my favorite time of year. Yes, it's hot. Yes, there's bugs. Yes, it's like, humidity out the wazoo. But I love hunting when there's lots of food and and deer are not pressured. And it's my favorite time to be in the woods. I like it better than the rut.
I agree with that. It's just so much sweeter if it can coincide.
Oh,
with a
sure,
cold front.
of course.
A high pressure cold front.
Oh yeah, which y'all can pray for that too because. Opening day here is the 15th of October, and I was lucky enough to get selected for a SOA hunt at Thigpen Hill. So we have the opening weekend hunt there, and so I'm pretty dang excited. This is actually the units that I drew are actually units I've hunted before for a turkey hunt, so I'm somewhat familiar. I've been to Thigpen twice, once for a hog hunt, once for a turkey hunt, but.
Do they let you put corn out on those?
They do not. They frown upon that.
Okay, I wasn't sure. It's been a long time since I've worked for the state, so I wasn't sure how they operate these days.
But one thing that I was excited about is some of these hunts are like antlered deer only, antlerless deer only, or they have what's called hunter's choice hunts, which is basically you pick. And
you get to pick.
Yep. Yeah, so but it's pretty cool because in that zone, if you guys are familiar with Alabama's zoning system, technically down there the zone calls for the first 10 days. Where you cannot harvest does. And then after that you can. But I guess the state can kind of override that for some of these hunts for population control purposes and that sort of thing. So this one is actually a hunter's choice.
Just call it what it is. The state can kind of do what they want.
That's true. Which I mean is that's
within regulations and setting bag limits and seasons. They can absolutely do what they want to do.
Yes, which I was kind of upset about because a cousin of mine had informed me like, "Oh man, you're not going to be able to shoot a doe," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, man, according to the zone, the zoning map, like. You can't shoot. You've got opening weekend, so you can't shoot does that weekend. And I was so bummed because, not that you couldn't shoot a buck down there, but chances are slim. Yeah, they're slim, and and then there's restrictions on what buck you can take too. But I got the official email from the biologist and looked through all the rules. Me and Kyle, you guys have heard me talk about him, taking him with me. We'll try to get him his first deer with a bow, but each person gets one buck each, and each person can kill up to 3 does each. Nice. So, I mean, obviously.
If you can find deer, you're coming back with something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And, of course, pigs there too, that kind of stuff. But, how wild would it be if you had the opportunity to harvest 8 deer? I mean, not that we would, but it's just it's crazy to think that there's that many there that they could do that.
I know you'd be pissed off after you got through cleaning all of them.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be mad at yourself.
It'd be awful. After the first one, like, all right, let's,
But there's nothing more fun than taking a deer, a hog, or something with archery equipment, and then celebrating that with your buddies and going through the whole thing. But it's fun one time. If you have to do that same thing like 7 or 8 times the same night, it's no fun.
No.
It becomes work rapidly.
And I've got a friend of mine, Jake. If you're listening to this, he'll appreciate it. But he calls it. There's 2 types of fun. He says there's type 1 fun and then there's type 2 fun. Mm-hmm. Type 1 is it's fun right now. Mm-hmm. And when you look back and you have memories, it's fun. It's still like, oh, man, that was awesome. But type 2 fun is like in the moment, like this sucks. Misery. Oh, my gosh, this is awful. But when you look back, you're like, it really wasn't that bad. It was fun. You know? So,
well, I fondly – I mean, that is a perfect example of my buddy Byron and I went to Nebraska 2 years ago, and we hunted 16 days. And in the midst of that, other than having a good time with my buddy, it was miserable. But he and I talked on the phone. He moved from Mississippi back to Georgia a few weeks ago, and just talking with him, seeing how transition was going, and he started talking about that hunt, and he's like, man, I told you I would never, ever step foot back in that place. And he said, I don't know. It's just under my skin. He said, I want to go back.
Yep, I know.
And I've already talked to you and Matt.
That's right.
I mean, Byron and I spent 16 days on, I think it's a couple 100,000 acres total. But in 16 days, these little feet right here covered a whole lot of it. And what the feet didn't cover, glass probably looked at.
Yeah.
So I feel like I know that place fairly well, and been successful on plenty of pronghorn hunts. And I feel like I kind of got it, but I want us to go out there and see if we can do it.
Man, that'd be fun.
Me, you, and Matt, and take a couple other guys. But it's that
would be fun. Of course, now Jake and I, we talk about it when he drew the elk hunt for Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Now that's a once in a lifetime tag. You know what I mean? Most of the time, you're not going to get an opportunity to go on that hunt again. And it was, you talk about everything that could go wrong went wrong. We had multiple flat tires on the trip between 2 vehicles. Just something about the shale rock stuff. I mean, we had issues with other guides and outfitters trying to hunt the same stuff and getting cussed out and all this. I mean, it was just a miserable trip. But you look back on it, it's like, it's kind of fun, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Kind of want to go back. So
we used to go to. We went to. I don't care to say it. We used to go to Ballard. We used to go to Higginson Henry.
Yep.
And we used to go to, was it Big River?
The Big Rivers, yeah.
We used to go up there a lot, and it got so overrun with guys from down here going up there that we quit going because then it was no fun. But we had some of the worst luck while we were up there hunting. But every year, as soon as we packed up, we were ready to go back. And we killed deer and we had a decently good time, but most of the time it was always a cluster.
Yes.
Just something going on up there that just what finally kind of I guess broke the camel's back, so to speak, up there. We hadn't been seeing good deer on some of the areas in quite a while because there were so many hunters going up, and got to talking. I mean, I was working with the state even before I worked with Game and Fish. Was going up there and got to know the biologist real well, and we were talking to him, and they had kind of gotten upset how many people were coming and just couldn't really curb the interest in the areas. But we were walking around scouting, and we started finding like 2- and 3-year-old bucks that people had shot and just left. Mm. I mean, deer laying places that they didn't lose them, mm-hmm. And several states don't have a wanton waste law, which at that time Kentucky did not, and I don't know if they do now. So if you didn't want to claim that animal you shot, you didn't have to.
God, that's awful.
We watched a guy climb down a stand, climb down a tree in this climber, and saw the deer laying there dead. and talked to him, and he's like, no, it's not what I thought it was. He said, I'm
Just
not
left it
going to claim
laying.
it.
That's terrible.
Just left it laying
Gosh.
there. Sure did.
That's terrible. That'll make you not want to go back.
Yeah.
Especially if you know stuff like that's going on.
Mm-hmm. But see, now they've changed. The draw system's back in effect, or in effect up there now.
It is, yep.
It's tough to get on those areas. So I may start trying to go back one
I
of these
know.
days.
I'm an idiot and forgot about my deadline and let all of my points.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No. See, I do wish other states would. I assume Iowa's still the same as they've always been. They don't expire. I don't think. I hope not.
I don't know. I've never applied for Iowa. But
I've had 6 points for years and need to go, but I don't have anybody to go with. I'm not going to go by myself. So.
No doubt. Well, guys, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right in. I think we've flapped our
Shot the
gums.
bull
enough. So, like I said, some of these, all these questions came from Instagram, and they're just kind of all over the place. Some of them are related to run and gun type stuff. Some are about food plots, and we're just going to cover some of these, and then we'll probably break this up and do another segment at a later date. But for now, the very first question here, and I wanted to ask Jeremy specifically this one, so I'm glad he was able to make it out. But somebody was talking about buying versus leasing property specifically to hunt on. Kind of pros and cons there, and just kind of compare and contrast. What are the scenarios in which it makes sense to buy the property, or what are scenarios where it makes more sense to maybe lease it, those type things. What can you do with one versus the other? And let's just kind of, I guess, dive into that and see if, we're projecting on some of these questions a little bit because we don't know exactly what you mean when you're limited in what you can submit. But I think you're just kind of wanting to see, where does it make sense to buy versus lease?
Yeah, well, there's 2 huge pros for each one, and they're totally the opposite. So the pro on buying land is you own it, you can do whatever you want to with it.
That's right.
The giant pro for leasing land is you don't have to be able to afford to buy land just to be able to hunt.
That's right.
So you've got 2 huge pros. Now leasing is getting much more expensive. It's still rapidly climbing in places. I talked to some guys down southeast Alabama and southwest Georgia here a few days ago, and I'm trying to think. He was telling me some of those guys were paying over $20 an acre for hunting rights.
Man, I remember the days of $6 an acre.
Me too.
I mean, that's craziness.
Hey, when I went to work for Soterra, the year I went to work for them was the first year that they had stopped doing it. They were selling a permit, so you had to go to the office at each location, wherever the area was that managed that group of ground, that group of acres, and you could buy a $10 permit and hunt all year, any of it.
God. Yeah, it
went from that to
that makes more sense than buying land for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There are a lot of back and forth with leasing and owning. Like I said, owning, you're going to be able to do what you want to. One of the things that I would really suggest folks that are looking to buy is do a lot of research on the area, on neighbors. You really need to have, this is my suggestion. Of course, I am a real estate agent, but my suggestion is have an agent or a broker that is helping you evaluate tracts on individual merit. You can fix property as long as you can afford to. It's kind of like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they'll come. And to a large extent, they will. Now, you want to be buying place that has source populations of whatever animals you're wanting to hunt, what are game species. There's a phenomenal tract for sale right now on the market. We don't have it listed. I'm not going to mention it because I don't know that they'd want us to, but or at least the folks. But it's Triple Creek Farm over in East Alabama, when I was with Game and Fish, we helped them start developing that property for quail, and the guy's idea was he wanted to hunt wild populations of quail on his own property before he died, and there was one problem.
No quail.
There was no quail.
That's right.
And we actually did covey counts to prove that there were no quail, but he actually was involved with tall timbers and research and management, and they did a translocation project. So they brought wild birds up. He managed the property very, very intensively, and now he's got wild birds.
Gotcha.
So it's a premier Alabama property. But I said all that to say, you know, he did not have a source population to achieve the goal he wanted to achieve. However, he had the financial ability to do that.
Right. And that's the advantage of owning the land.
Yep.
You know, you can do that kind of stuff.
Yep. Not everybody can afford to do the things that he was doing. Deer, much easier, you know, to determine whether or not you've got deer. I mean, pretty easy to walk around and look for deer tracks, deer scat, find, deer sign.
Throw cameras up.
Yeah, but do research, and I've worked with customers that they really didn't care what the property looked like as long as it was something that was large enough and in the area that they wanted. And that's great. You know, if somebody, they just want to be in a specific area and they've got the financial ability to make the improvements, then that makes things easier. If folks can afford the property, but they can't necessarily afford a lot of improvements, then I suggest taking your sweet time and find the right track up front. I searched for a guy, a piece of property, and we looked from central Alabama all the way up into southern Tennessee, and he had some very, very specific goals, and it took us a little over a year to find him the right track.
Yeah.
So just take your time. But some of the benefits with leasing, look, a lot of the infrastructure is already going to be in place. If you're leasing, most of the time in the southeast, you're going to be leasing from a timber company or a company that's managing land for a REIT or a TIMO, something like that. So, you know, there's going to be roads in place. There's probably already food plots. Some instances, there may even be shooting houses and stuff left from past, customers. But the one thing that you got to understand is they own that land. Either somebody does that the REIT and TIMO's managing it for, or the company that you're leasing from actually may own the land. They're going to control what you can and can't do. They can come in at any time and tell you, hey, boys, we're about to clear cut that 300 acres, and you've got 500 acres total, and they say, stay out of it. Well, I mean, you've already spent all that money on your lease. You spent all that time, then you're going to have to contend with that. It turns people from leasing a little bit, but, man, I love logging going on my, if I've got a place to hunt and I know active logging is a possibility, I'm all for it.
Right.
Timber companies and land management companies often are not going to let you remove any type of timber to make a food plot or anything in that sort. So your hands are going to be tied. You're not going to be able to burn. I don't know of any company that allows burning. Now, private landowners may, as long as you get a certified burner. I don't know of any that do, that some may. A lot of them aren't going to let you do road work. Some of them will, but a lot of them, they want to do their road work so that they know how it's done. And I'm talking major work, putting in culverts,
right,
grading roads. Now, if you're just using a box blade to keep something up and keep it manageable, then nobody's going to have a problem with that.
Right.
But there's merit to both. I mean, obviously, best case scenario is if you can afford it, buy your own place.
Right. Well, I would say my only it's not really a rebuttal, but just a different experience. there's a very popular company that puts that puts
Make all that noise there.
sorry guys, that basically will get these tracts of land that landowners, farmers, whatever want to lease, and they put that out to the general public and try to get it leased for them. I mean, it basically is,
Yeah, there's several
leasing
doing
agents
that now.
Yeah, and we, me, my dad, a few of our friends, leased one of these tracts. One, because it literally had everything that we wanted. It was a great location in terms of from our front door. Didn't take that long to get there, which is something so hard to find where Jeremy and I both live. You can probably lease land somewhere, but it's not going to be within an hour drive of your house. It's probably going to be closer to 2.5 to 3.
Yep.
So we ran across something that was closer than that, and had everything we wanted. Had some ag, had pines, had cut over, had plenty of hardwoods, multiple creeks running throughout. We talked to the landowner, the guy that was trying to lease it, and thought we had kind of found something that we may do. We may have this property, as long as we can kind of have a good working relationship with the owner, we may have this for 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? Our kids can, hunt this. And that lasted all of one season because the lease was, at least for that point in time, and certainly I would say now, the most money that I have ever spent to be a part of any kind of lease or club. And it could have been really, really good. It could have been, a really good thing. But my thoughts are, and it's just an opinion, it's not right or wrong, but my thoughts are if I'm leasing the hunting rights to this piece of property, I would expect other people to stay off of it during hunting season. Now, you may go, that's not how that works, Taylor, and that's fine. But we leased this property, and opening weekend, this is the Saturday, opening weekend of rifle season, the landowner is on one of the food plots that Saturday morning running a chainsaw. We're like, hey, man, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just cutting up some firewood. Got firewood for the house. I'm like, can you do that elsewhere? Can you do that another day? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this goes on. That's not the first instance. This goes on and goes on throughout the whole season, and it was just like, all right, this is not what any of us thought this was going to be. If, it was my understanding you gave us the right to hunt it, in which we did, but I guess we just assumed that would mean, you might stay off of this during some while we're hunting it. You know what I mean? And so,
did y'all lease that to a lease agent?
We did.
Okay.
So that'll remain unnamed. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but it was just a really bad experience.
Yeah, well, look, those guys, I mean, there's several companies out there. The only one that I have firsthand knowledge with is Base Camp. Now, I've known some of those folks for a long, long time now. Man, they got a hard road sometimes because, they're just representing the landowner. The landowner's going to do what they want. But one thing that same kind of deal that me and another buddy had is we had a place leased through a lease agent like that, and the landowner was letting other people hunt.
Oh, gosh.
And the lease agent had no idea. But but leasing can be that way from individuals or somebody that's handling, a lease agent like that. And the lease agent may not know.
Right.
But most times, the best clubs generally are through private landowners at least, and the worst clubs are generally through private landowners at least.
Yes. Well,
all those companies and TMOs, they're generally, everybody knows what they're getting. It's kind of middle of the road. You get access. You know that there may be logging. You know there's not going to be many food plots, and you know it's going to be a lot of pine timber. But you go into that really understanding that, and don't get your feelings wrecked.
Yes.
Or your pocketbook wrecked when you get 5 hours away and oh man, they've been somebody here for a week.
Yes, and I mean, and that was kind of our thing. It wasn't just that the guy was on the property and stuff. Like after we signed this lease, then the guy goes and all right, well, here's our rules for harvest, and here's the thing, and I'm like, whoa.
What were these first?
Like we need to go over this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And it was like, well, and I understand his side of it. He's like, I don't want someone to come in here and just wipe out my deer herd.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then leave the next year. We don't have any kind of binding contract beyond this hunting season. Hey, man, I get that. But, like, can we have a working relationship here? You know what I mean? We because of the location, like, I want this to happen for a long time. We want to have this for years and years and have a chance to hunt it and stuff. And it was basically like, this is how it's going to be, and you can either
take it
or leave it. And so because of us being a little naive probably in the first time dealing with that third party, we went ahead and leased it anyways, even though there was a handful of red flags and that kind of stuff. But the property was also on the landowner's house, his permanent residence. So
that makes it tough.
He was just on it all the time.
Yep.
And then after deer season's over with, we're getting ready for turkey season. He's
there
running around checking traps and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, I understand you're trying to catch nest predators, and we're all for that, but we're also out here trying to turkey hunt, and you're running down the roads, So I would just say, I mean, that's leasing also typically involves more than just you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless you are very wealthy.
Easy.
You've got to involve more than you. Usually it involves more people, and that gets complicated. You have an idea of what you want to do with the property, and then there's 15 other people over here that.
Well, Matt and I have covered that a couple times on this podcast. I think if you're going to get in a club or you're going to have a club, and you're leasing land or whatever you're doing, if you want it to be successful, there's only one way to do it.
Gotta have a dictator.
That's it.
Yep.
Plain and simple. A voting board for hunting will never, ever, ever work.
No. The only thing with more than one head is a monster.
Yep.
I
mean, I've just been through it enough. You start out, for 2 or 3 years, man, things are great. And then all of a sudden, some new guy gets in and, he's somehow gets on the board and starts throwing wrinkles and things. And he'll get a clique that wants to do one thing, and the others will get a clique, and it goes to crap in a hurry. So there's some other things to watch out for. I talked to a guy on the phone. Matt was with me the other day. I mean, he called me pretty interesting. And I had dealt with it before, so it didn't catch me completely off guard. But I'd only seen it one other time. But a guy had a piece of property that he was debating wanting to, one, either hunt or sell. And he really preferred to sell it. Somebody down the line in his family bought that property with no hunting rights. So
what?
The hunting rights were deeded to another group of people.
Oh my God!
And he's like, "How do I handle that?" And I'm like, "Boss, these not good ways to handle that."
I
said, "You got 2 things that you can do." I said, "You're going to have to get your real estate attorney and figure out if you can negotiate those rights and get them all back, under ownership, or you're going to have to try to sell it without hunting rights." And I said, you and I both know what it's going to bring where it's at with no hunting rights, because
that's all it's there for.
All it's there for.
Right.
Yep.
God, it's terrible.
And then from the leasing side, folks really, really need to have somebody. I'm not saying get legal advice, but somebody that understands contractual language to read through the lease.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go out on a little past that. If you're a leasee or you have folks that lease from you and you have a hunter liability insurance policy, make sure somebody that understands that language goes through it.
Yep.
I've seen people hung out and dried on some lease contracts that they signed and on the liability insurance. One of the crazy ones, and I'm not going to go into it at all other than just mention it, but an excess basis clause in your hunting lease insurance. Understand what that means. Read up on it, understand what it means.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is scary because, I mean, all any of us are trying to do when we lease property, like we're trying to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this on this podcast, multiple times, but man, when this stuff stops being fun because of whatever reason, legal reasons or because of your neighbors or because of whatever, like it kills the sport. Like it kills the heart behind it too. So do what you got to do to protect yourself.
Yeah, and I'm jaded from that because I was with a company.
Sure.
Everybody always wanted to sue us. No matter what happened. But we did have, I think it was 2 instances where we had fatalities while I worked at the company, hunting related. May have been 3. I know of 2. But you got to cover yourself.
Sure. No doubt. Well, hopefully that helps on the buying versus leasing. We kind of went all over the place on that. But
yeah, I mean, it boils down to if you can afford it,
get it.
buy it. Look, land isn't getting any cheaper. It's not going to decrease in value.
Absolutely not.
They're not making any more of it.
Nope.
So if you can afford it, get your own little piece because then nobody other than the government can tell you what to do with it.
Yeah.
They're dang sure going to try.
Oh, yeah, they will.
But if you can't do that, then there's plenty of lease options out there. Look, I lease land and I own land. We got maybe
Moneybags McGee over there.
We may have a total of like 3/4 of a deer on the place that I own.
Yeah.
So I have to lease ground to go to hunt.
Yep.
Anyway.
The rest of us.
Yep.
All right, well, let's see. We'll move on. This is an interesting one. I think this probably relates to a lot of people that listen to this podcast. Let's talk about food plots with minimal equipment. I know that there's like every hunting show or YouTube series you pull up, these guys have these big, giant, lush green plots, and it doesn't really matter what part of the world it's in, but you see them. Some of these guys will even show some of the prep work that goes into to planting these plots, and they've got huge tractors, and they've got thousands and thousands of dollars worth of fertilizer and seed and all kinds of stuff to make this happen. But like, what if you don't have that stuff? What if you don't have access to it?
Let me shine a light on that too a little bit. Is we know, or I at least I do, and Matt does. We know a lot of these folks that's got those pages and the personalities that are doing all those things, and some of them are doing their own work. A lot of times people that they're leasing ground from that are farmers are doing that work for them.
Yeah.
So their farmer has got the $200,000 tractor and the $80,000 old planter because you can't buy a new one now for $80,000.
Jeez,
or
money.
A $30,000, $35,000 Great Plains drill. Matt and I own big enough equipment to do, fields for people, but not everybody has it, and you don't have to have it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I kind of want to get. Like, hey, man, I've got a 4-wheeler.
Yep.
I've got a hand spreader.
Look,
I've got a lawnmower.
The fact of the matter is you can do just as good of a plot, and you can do just as big a plots as we do. It's just going to take you a lot longer, and the sweat equity is going to be a lot higher. Big equipment, all that does is make you more efficient. It's not that you can do things that other people simply can't. You can. It's just much more time intensive and labor intensive. If you've got little small food plots, 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, it doesn't take anything but a 4-wheeler or a riding lawnmower. And you don't even have to have a sprayer that goes on a piece of equipment. you can use a hand sprayer. I've seen plenty of guys use a pump sprayer and do a handful of quarter-acre plots. You go out there and 2 or 3 weeks before you're going to plant or they're going to plant, they go out there and spray Roundup over everything and just go out and spread seed, take a riding lawnmower and mow it and walk away.
Yep.
And that's fine. We're feeding wildlife, folks.
Yep.
We're not building a RTJ golf course.
Right.
We can deal with some weeds or some bare spots, things like that. I try to tell folks not to go overboard on what they think they need. But now, if a landowner is going to make it a priority that they do their own plots and they have a job, which most people do, they need to invest in equipment that makes them efficient.
Yeah.
Because when you're not efficient, you're going to quit doing them.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. Especially with folks that's got large acreage.
Yeah.
Or they've got jobs that don't let them out. But now if you're dealing with small plots, man, don't make it hard.
Yeah. Don't overcomplicate things.
No. Every couple of years, throw out some pelletized lime. You're not going to have to go to the extent of taking soil samples. You can put your seed out, mow over it, and you're going to have a green field. You're going to feed some wildlife, and you're going to attract deer. Now, is that the best way to do it? No. I mean, honestly, I want to have soil samples. I want to know what's going on. For little bitty fields that you're going to hunt some in your backyard, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
You don't have to make it harder than it is.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think probably the guy asking this question is going, if I've got a four-wheeler and I've got a riding mower, a push mower, and like you said, a pump-up hand sprayer, look, depending on how much how big a plot you're making, I mean, that could really, really suck to do it. But, but could you do it? Yeah, you can do it. Sure. You know what I mean? You absolutely can.
Hey, so look at in other countries at how folks are farming.
That's right.
Not everybody, third world countries, so to speak, I guess, they're not farming with big, heavy equipment like we are and other countries are. They're still doing things by hand. We did things by hand here 100 years ago. You can still do things by hand.
Yep.
Is it fun? Maybe for a little while, but then it's going to suck.
Yeah, it's not.
And I forget what they call the little disc that you can hook into a four-wheeler hitch.
Yeah.
Maybe a groundhog or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
But look, you can run circles out there. Put your kid on the four-wheeler. Let him ride in circles for an hour. There ain't going to be any grass left.
No.
If you keep them in that one spot, just put them on it and let them go to town. Don't get them hurt.
No.
They need to understand that they can't be doing donuts 30 miles an hour with a little disc behind it. But
no, but it is cool. I mean, I remember doing some of that stuff when I was a kid, and you do get a little bit of satisfaction. Like, hey, you remember several months back when we were out here, sweating to death and getting this, like, now look at it. Now it's like, oh, man, that's cool.
And there's plenty of implements out there that you can pull behind a four-wheeler or a small lawnmower or a small lawn tractor. By lawnmower, I'm talking riding lawnmowers, not actual tractors, but you can get, obviously, riding lawnmowers that are tractor size, 30 horsepower, something like that. Those are fine to do food plots with. Just take your time, don't tear things up, and do proper maintenance on that stuff so it lasts. And look, for crying out loud, I love you guys that live in town, and that's what but you've grown up hunting but not farming. A 35 horsepower John Deere 4-wheel drive tractor with a loader is not a bulldozer. It ain't going to do things bulldozers do. Understand the limitations of your equipment. Use them within those limitations, and you'll be happy. Otherwise, you're going to tear stuff up and not be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it probably stems from just like, hey, look, I'm out here.
I got to get this done.
I got to get this done. You know, I got stuff to do.
Well, and the only reason I say that is because I've seen some pretty serious accidents with farming equipment or folks running equipment that aren't really used to it and think it's a little bigger than what it is and using it for jobs it's not used for. I mean, heck, these little tractors out there now, most of them, unless you know what you're doing, they've got the hydraulic capacity limited so that they can't lift something too big for the tractor. Mm-hmm. If you know what you're doing, you can change that. Some tractors will lift more than they can handle. And I've seen people picking up cutting stumps and stuff like that and big rocks on food plots and get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not just trying to, call folks out, but if that's not what you do, let somebody that does do that tackle those bigger things because it's not worth getting hurt, getting killed.
No, and it happens.
I mean, it's like people hanging stands that don't have any idea what that's never hung a lock on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get up there and start. They've got I got in there and start jumping on it, and next thing you know, they're disappearing into the canopy cover.
That stuff's scary, man. You can't be too safe on doing any of this kind of stuff.
Nope.
And I mean, don't want to get off in the weeds too bad, but there's people that have experience doing this that can get in trouble. There's people that know what they're doing.
Oh, look, I have fallen out of stands, unfortunately, multiple times. I have fallen out once. I was transitioning. This was before I don't guess it's before the invention, before we were using lifelines. Mm-hmm. They've been out for a long time. But we were using lineman belts going up trees to hang ladders. Mm-hmm. But, you transition from the ladder to the stand, you unhook that thing.
Right.
Well, I unhooked one time, and the strap on the very top of the ladder broke.
Ooh.
And so when it popped, out I went. But I felt it coming, and I just kind of hopped backwards, and I landed on my feet. Now, it ruined an ankle. It didn't break it, but black and blue twisted it, Mm-hmm. I've seen, we've had stands break. As an outfitter, you check everything. Mm-hmm. A stand that I put up, the stand itself broke a few years ago.
Cables?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cable broke.
Man.
Sure did. The first hunter that got in the stand stepped on it. We put up lifelines. We require them to wear safety harness. So he was hooked into the lifeline, and when it broke, he just fell straight down. Didn't even get a scratch on him. But stuff just happens.
It does. Well, I mean, and
when you're inexperienced, it can happen to you faster.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Even with using tractors and equipment like that, mm-hmm. guys that are operating that. A piece of property that I used to get to hunt in Tennessee. The guy that owned the neighboring property is a great guy. It was actually the term has left me, but not a forester, a
arborist.
No, a ranger. So, anyways, he's been around this stuff, mm-hmm. All his life, and he actually died on his property. Tractor tipped back with him. He was trying to go up too steep of an incline mm-hmm. and hit something while he was going up the incline and killed him. Mm-hmm. And so it's just stuff happens. That's all I was trying to say is that, even with experience, you still got to be careful.
And that's why I, try to make it a point to say use the equipment that you have within its limitations. Because bad things can happen fast when you get outside those.
Right. But yeah, anyway, so hopefully that helps on the limited equipment food plot question. You don't have to break the bank to have pretty food plots. You
Absolutely
just have to
not.
Use what you got and put some sweat equity into it, and you can make it whatever you want it to be.
Yep. I mean, there's a guy, I left a piece of property. Well, I was there yesterday again. He was drilling about 40 acres of fields. He had an old John Deere, is either an 82 or an 8300 just drill. I would imagine it was built in the late 50s. Mm-hmm. I mean, he probably bought it for a few $100. if I had my guess.
Yeah.
Still works, still meter seed. You don't have to break the bank.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So moving on here. Let's see. This is one that, again, some of these we have to sort of project on, and we think we know what you're asking. We might not, but this is one, scouting for run and gun spots. And I think you guys actually sent in a follow-up message with that. And it was something to the effect of, like, if you're going in somewhere and maybe it's public or maybe it's just a piece of private that you don't know, and you're having to pack your hunting method in. So if that's a climber or a lock-on or a saddle or whatever, you're packing it in with you, and then you're packing it out, trying to be on the move, that kind of stuff.
Boy, saddles changed that game.
Oh yeah, it has, no doubt.
And the little tiny stands.
Yeah. There's some stands out there that are like,
oh, it's unbelievable.
18 pounds, 16 pounds.
Shoot, man!
It's crazy.
The only reason I know this, I bought Trey, that works for me. He did a little extra job around my house for me a couple of years ago that I just needed help with. And he's like, man, don't pay me. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do something. And he said, I tell you what. He said, I want this little Millennium stand. I said, okay. I said, I'll get you one. I didn't know they were, nearly $300.
Right.
But, man, I think it's called a M7.
Not sure.
But I think it's like 9 pounds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, a Millennium lock, the thing packs up and it ain't that big. Now, it don't look very comfortable for me.
Right.
Trey's not a big guy. But, yeah, I mean, now the mobility has changed so much.
It has.
You can buy rifles that are lightweight, bows if you don't rig them out like Taylor's right here.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a full pack to cinch it down on and put it on your back and carry it.
Yeah, that's right. The site doesn't have to brew coffee for you.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's climbing methods that make that easier and stuff. But specifically, I think what the follow-up question was, like, what are you looking for in those type of situations where you may be going in blind? I've not had a chance to really scout this property. You've got everything on your back. What are you looking for in a place to hunt when you're running, gunning, trying to pack in,
I think that's going to be different for a variety of different people based off the way they hunt.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, obviously, hopefully everybody says, man, you just got to go in and look for a hot sign.
Sure.
Well, yeah, what is that? For me, I'm not generally one that's always just targeting a specific buck. I do in places. Some places I just go hunt. I just want to see deer.
Me too.
Just enjoy what I'm doing. If I can get in and I can find relatively fresh tracks and or scat, turds, deer pellets, whatever you want to call it, and I can locate a food source that I'm reasonably sure they've fed at within the last 24 hours, that's where I'm going.
Right.
Early season, I'm going to hot acorns wherever I can find them. Or if I can find soft mass dropping during the early parts of the season, certain parts of the world, certain areas, you'll get into persimmon trees that are going to hold late in the winter. Some, man, they're dropping right now.
Yep.
It's just hard to know.
Right.
So you just got to get out there and you got to look.
That's right. And I think too, just this would be a kind of a generalized statement because I don't know where you're hunting. I don't know, what your terrain looks like, all that kind of stuff. But time of the year, takes, precedence. You got to figure out,
absolutely,
that sort of things. But assuming this is early season, archery season type stuff, for me, aside from, sure, go find some hot sign, go find, I have kind of found that terrain, use that to your advantage.
Oh, absolutely.
If there's some kind of a steep incline of something like that, or
this thing
a creek,
right here
is
your friend.
That's right. If you've got Onyx or you've got
Hunt
Spartan Forge, whatever your favorite one is, that can kind of help you pinpoint some topography to go check out, to at least go see what it looks like. And I'm a big fan of finding somewhere, like I said, terrain where maybe it's really steep, along this entire hillside here, but there's a little swag that's easier to climb up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, deer are just like people. They'll take path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So go find something like that, or a creek crossing where it's, a little bit easier for them to cross the creek here than it is 300 yards behind you or in front of you or something like that. If you can find something that's going to kind of bottleneck the deer's travel.
That really kind of brings me to a point that I heard Bobby Worthington talk about. You know who he is?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he's books and podcasts and the whole 9 yards, but I've heard him say it several times that he doesn't, just look for individual trails. He's looking and he's paying attention to these trails, but he's looking for an area where 3, 4, 5 trails that are all coming in, converging into one spot that these deer don't have really any other choice but to use this spot to get from point A to point B. And I have utilized that, before or after, and even after hearing him say that, you're not thinking about he said that, but you're walking through the woods and you're like, okay, well, these deer are traveling all over the place right here, but I get to this one ditch and I can walk up and down it 150 yards each direction. This is the only place they're going to cross it.
Right.
Within reason. A deer being chased by something may hit something and do something that it wouldn't normally do.
Right.
But look for those areas, and that's where these things come in.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Look for those terrain, those pinch points, rock outcroppings, water, something that forces a deer to travel in that particular location.
Well, I mentioned Thigpen earlier when we first started, but I went on a hog hunt there, which basically started the day after deer season a couple years ago, and that's the only reason that I was able to take a hog on that trip. I basically found the freshest sign that I could find. There was rooting everywhere, but trying to find one that looked fresh was the hard part, and set up on the freshest thing that I could find, and I am butted up against a creek, and when I say against it, I'm talking about behind me 10 yards is running water. I'm as far back as I can get. And this pig comes out of some thicker stuff into the hardwoods. There's water oaks everywhere, and it goes to the creek, and it's really steep. I mean, there's no way that it would really, like you said, unless it was being chased or something spooked it, but it goes directly away from me as far as it can. Realizes there's nowhere for it to cross, turns around and walks the edge of the creek back to me, and I shoot it. But that's what it was doing, was trying to figure out how do I get across this creek.
Yeah.
And I happened to be in a good spot, and it worked. But anyways, I think, and that's easier. The terrain side of things is, it's like, yeah, man, that's a great concept. Where I hunt in parts of, like, just take Alabama. If you're in South Alabama, it's flat as a pancake in a lot of places. Like, well, there's not really anything to narrow that down.
It's not, but you say that, but even those folks down south, and I've had a lot of experience in the swamps, in southwest Alabama, and even though there's not much terrain, that 3-foot rise that's out in the middle of that swamp, for some reason that's there, you better believe animals understand the difference in that. And it may only be 10 inches, but if it's flat as a pancake everywhere and you've got a 10-inch rise somewhere, a hump, you better be looking at those humps.
Yep, that's right.
It doesn't take much topography. That's what I think is so beautiful and enjoyable about hunting the Midwest and, further points west, depending on what species you're hunting, is you can look at a map and you can almost be like, okay, I know for a fact that's where deer are coming.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to get here, because there's no other way.
Right.
Here where everything's dang near closed canopy forest every direction till you're in town.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes it tougher.
It does.
Especially when there's not much terrain.
Oh, yeah.
Where I grew up hunting in Tennessee, man, the deer, I mean, they were, you could set your clock on or your watch on how they moved. They came out of the bottoms into the hills in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
In the evenings, they start working down. And there were places on that mountain you could see it, both sits, morning, afternoon. You could do that every day, and you would see deer every single time you sat there. That's just the way they were coming.
Right. That's what they like
now,
to do.
You may bump them off of it when they're coming. They're still going to come right there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about terrain stuff all day, but it's certainly that would be my suggestion. If I've got to pack something on my back and I've got to pack it out whenever I leave, make sure the wind's in my face when I'm walking in, and go look for those things. And that's probably the best thing to do.
And don't, I always tell people this. This is from when I was talking about Higginson and Ballard and all that. You don't always have to walk 5 miles in.
No, you don't. Absolutely.
Some of the best luck I've had, I could see the vehicles. I watched people walk by me, and those deer, they just kind of get used to that.
Yep.
They grow up that way, and they'll lay right next to the road and let you park, and then they'll get up and go out in the field, and they'll be there when you come out, and you're like, what the crap?
Yep, that's right. That's right.
I tell you who really, it impresses me that people kill deer and stuff like that, but like up in PA when you get in big woods, and those hills up there where it's just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, honing in on deer and something like that, I would have to see it. I've never done that, the big woods up northeast hunting. I imagine it's very similar to North Alabama. But I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, we're close canopy hardwood forest here, so. But there's places, Skyline WMA.
Absolutely.
Man, can be feast or famine.
It can.
You can see great deer, kill great deer, or you can sit there all season and not see crap.
Yep. Yeah, it's very difficult, and I would say if you go that route, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of like really good deer for the state of Alabama, North Alabama for sure, that come off of Skyline every year. Mm-hmm. You had better be willing to put some time in to figure out how these deer travel that crazy terrain.
Yep.
Because if you can figure that out.
And Bankhead's very similar.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have a ton of experience with Bankhead, but Skyline I do. And if you can figure that element out, I mean, really, that transposes to like different times of the year. It still works. It still works. No matter if it's rut or not rut or early season, late season, whatever. They generally take the same routes of travel.
We gave up a 1,200 acre lease in Jackson County because of that. I mean, the deer use that property during hunting season one specific way, and it made it impossible for us to hunt it effectively.
Really?
Yep, because of the access that we had, there was no effective way to hunt the place.
That's frustrating. Cause
we battled with it for about 6 or 7 years, and we built other roads. The fact of the matter was the access that we had just would not allow us. We needed to come in from the total opposite way across other land, and that wasn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah, it's frustrating. I've done the same thing too. When you know without a doubt that you have deer, and bucks on your property to hunt, but you can't get to them. Mm-hmm. That's hard to swallow. Like there's nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. Y'all have heard me talk about it before, but a couple years ago I knew I had multiple bucks on this teeny tiny little piece of property here in North Alabama that I get to hunt, and I knew they were there. I knew when they'd be there, and there's one way in, there's one way out, and there's no way for me to get there early enough. I mean, if I got there at 3 a.m., it wouldn't be early enough. Mm-hmm. They're bedding in that, and they get up and immediately start to feed, and so it's just hard because I tried to get in there super early and blew them out, and it's just like, they're not coming back in the evening. Right. It's not an evening spot. They're there in the morning. And that's where they feed. So It sucks, but I understand the frustration. Last question here. Tell you what, we'll do this one just because this is something that we've talked about a little bit on previous episodes. I mentioned that we're almost a year old now, and ironically, this is one of the things that we mentioned. I think maybe our second episode we ever did, talking about early season scouting, to kind of go hand in hand with the question we just answered a minute ago. But this one actually came from a guy that I think is in North Carolina. I think it's where he lives. But he said, "What about mast in the South? Timing when these mass producers are producing, and how to hunt those specific things in the South." So I'll let you kind of speak more into this because you know more about it than I do. But you've got soft mast and you've got hard mast. First off, let's just start with the difference between the two.
One's hard, one's soft.
Yeah, and then beyond that, what makes those things attractive in certain times of year. And of course, now he's saying the Southeast, North Carolina, and is where he's at personally. But for us, we're farther south. And
depends on where he is in North Carolina if we're going to let him consider himself Southeast.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And Lord, hopefully he's not in the part that just got washed away.
I know.
Man,
it's terrible.
Yeah, prayers of those folks. But mass can be hit or miss based off the tree. That's just something you're just going to have to get out and look for. You've got certain oaks that are going to be where they're going to produce acorns every couple of years. You've got some varieties that are going to produce every year, assuming that the conditions are right. The one thing that we struggle with here, and I would imagine North Carolina, because of the mountains and the coast, probably run into the same type situations. We run into late freezes that really hamper our acorn production,
right,
or our fruit production on top of that. If we get late frost with everything budded out, it hurts.
Yep.
We may go a year that just where we have very, very few acorns or very, very little soft mast. I don't really get tore up about soft mast a whole lot because most of it is mature outside the window that it's attractive for hunting. Some are, there's certainly a variety, actually a number of varieties of species that will hold fruit, into hunting season. That's going to depend on what species you're looking at, and there's so many of them. I'm not even going to go down that road. The number one soft mast that people are able to hunt and take advantage of, primarily, this natural, is going to be obviously persimmons.
Yep.
And you can have some of those, like I said a while ago, they could be dropping now. I've got a persimmon tree in my yard that they're dropping. They've been dropping for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then where I grew up hunting in Tennessee, those trees would hold persimmons till right at the end of deer season, which then was Christmas. I think their season's a little different now. I'm not 100% sure. But that's what I would be targeting in the woods that was natural. Now, if you've got orchards planted, then obviously what you've got planted. More than likely, you've taken the time to research and get late dropping or late maturing pears, apples, things of that nature. And I'm a big fan of having those things.
Sure.
But, understand a lot of it's going to be utilized outside that window.
Yeah, I was going to say, as long as I can remember, a lot of older guys are like, "Oh man, if you can find some persimmons, you got to hunt them. Hunt those persimmons. Hunt those persimmons." And again, this is just my experience. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but every time I've ever tried to hunt persimmons, and they were there, like they were, on the tree and were falling on the ground. I don't know that I've ever even seen a deer.
Oh, really?
But, yeah,
I've killed the snot out of
and that's what I mean. And that's just me personally. Yeah. I don't know if it's because the region where I was hunting, there's just something else they prefer. They'd rather be eating white oaks, or something like that. But personally, I'm like, man, all I've heard of these old heads talk about hunting persimmons, and I can't see a deer over persimmons,
We had a handful of persimmon trees up there on our place in one spot. There was 4 or 5 trees kind of in a little grove that was in a cedar thicket. I mean thicket. I killed the snot out of deer right there.
Right.
I mean, it's like shooting fish in a barrel with archer equipment. It was a blast. But now some of the persimmons that were out a little more in the open in the fence rows, we didn't see deer under them, until after dark.
Yeah.
The time period they were being utilized was just too late to take advantage of. Obviously, your hard mast or your acorns, you're going to have other nuts and stuff out there. Deer will eat pecans, for folks that's got pecans, folks that's planting the chestnuts now. I mean, deer wear those out. Mm-hmm. But primarily, everybody's focused on the red oak and the white oaks. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to get out and you're going to have to find which tree's dropping. Even if you find trees dropping, doesn't mean you're going to kill a deer there. Nope. They may not be feeding there.
That's right.
That's the hard part. Is finding the feed tree. I hate to say feed tree because it's these little buzzwords now.
No, but
got to find the feed tree in the buck bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would echo that too because I've hunted some places where it's almost like there's too much of a good thing. Like there are so many oaks, and they're all dropping. I mean, I've hunted places in DeKalb County where it's like being on a roller rink. Like you can't even stand up. There's so many on the ground, and so it's like at that point they could be anywhere. They could eat any. So how do you narrow down which one to go hunt?
One thing that I would mention to the guy there in North Carolina, and I'm not super familiar with what tree species dominate their ridges and whatnot. If they have as many mountain oaks or chestnut oaks or rock there's so many different names for that tree. I call it a mountain oak.
About the size of your big toe. They're monsters.
But deer generally don't prefer those.
No.
And they absolutely rain when they're dropping. There will be millions of gigantic acorns laying there, and you're like, why ain't anything eating these?
Yeah.
Well, they're bitter as all get out.
Yeah. If there's something else to eat, they won't eat.
And the crazy thing, it's a white oak species.
Yeah.
And they're just not eating that particular white oak species. If I was talking to people that they knew that's the oak that they had, avoid that oak, go find the others.
Yeah.
I've told you all time and time again, my number one oak is I'm looking for a chinkapin. Mm-hmm. If I'm in the area or the type terrain that's going to have a chinkapin, I'm looking for that. Then I'm looking for a white oak, and then I'm looking for reds.
Yep.
So I'm going to target my oaks that way.
Yeah, and as far as timing, I mean,
from now till December,
right?
Water oaks are going to hold late. And look, if you've got a pine thicket that you can find a water oak that's absolutely raining in December, it's magic.
Yeah, well,
every deer in that thicket is going to come right there and vacuum up as many of those little acorns as they can.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is all of this is relative, right? So, sure, would they rather eat a white oak acorn? Of course they would, versus a mountain oak. But if they don't have any white oaks,
they're going to find the next preferred.
Yeah, they're going to go down to it, and so I think it comes with knowing whatever it is. The ground you're hunting, whether that's public or private or whatever, but if you know what species are there, that helps a lot. And I've said this on the episode with Ernie and stuff. Early on, I could not wrap my head around why I couldn't see deer, and I would hunt those mountain oaks, and I would hunt, whatever. I would hunt okay, there's acorns here. Why can't I see deer? What's the deal? My wind is good, my access is good, like. I'm not clumsy, you know what I mean? Overly clumsy. They're just not here, and it's that, and that's it though. Like knowing what you are hunting and being able to identify tree species by the bark and by your leaves, if the leaves are still there, you know what I mean? Just all that kind of stuff goes a long way, and I underestimated that early on, big time.
One thing or two things that I would recommend to folks is, one, do some research on the phones and get an app that IDs plants. Get books that ID plants and acorns, and take them with you and learn what they are.
Yep.
Look, I still have to do that. Not that I've got to learn what they are, but I've got to remind myself. It's been so many years since I've seen or paid attention or uttered the words of a certain plant. Sometimes I look at it, I'm like, I know what that is, but I cannot bring it to recall.
Right.
I just can't. So I flip through the book. I'm like, yeah, that's right. I do know if deer like it or not.
Yep.
I don't even have to know the name. I can remember that.
This is deer food.
Yeah, I can remember. Oh yeah, they'll eat that.
Yeah.
But get an app, get the books, and take those with you. I don't know if all of the mapping apps do it, but I know Onyx has that oak cover layer.
Yep, they do.
It's okay. Look, they treat it like it's the greatest thing ever.
If it's
okay.
If it's so obvious that the app can pick up that there's oaks there's probably oaks there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, it's not going to identify, pinpoint.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like if you see a little square over there, there's probably oaks over
That's
there.
right.
You know what I mean?
And look, that we used all that type of stuff when I was at Game and Fish. You could do surveys for species like that. No big deal, but it's close. It's a good idea. It gives you a good idea of where to start looking.
Yep.
Especially if it's something new.
Yep.
And that's early season. That's what I would do. I would be studying those layers, finding out where my oaks are, what my terrain is, and number 3 is where is my water.
Yep, that's right.
And water, depending on where you are and the limited resources, water may be the more important of the 3.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We had a little water hole on the mountain in Tennessee. During the early season, I'd spend half my hunts within 50, 60 yards of that water hole.
Yeah.
I mean, because if they wanted water on that mountain, that's where they went.
Only place to get it.
That was the place to get it.
Yeah.
Till they got off into the bottoms.
Gotcha. Well, that covers about everything for today, man. I know we've kind of rambled and we've chased rabbits and we've talked about all kinds of stuff today.
Rabbits.
A little longer than we normally go, but I hope that answered some questions, and I apologize for being nasally. It's just a product of the environment right now. But,
yeah. I've been fighting the same crap.
Yep.
I don't know what the rest of the Midwest looks like. What Kansas looked, well, I drove through most of it, but I didn't get out. There were some areas that looked really, really dry. The part of Kansas we were in, they must have had unbelievable rainfall this year.
Oh yeah,
it's the tallest and the thickest that I have seen the grass and the prairie grasses and the weeds out there in several years.
Well, that's good.
So that's good, yeah. I know we talked to Al, and he said his part of Ohio, they might as well be parchment paper because that's about how dry they are.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I know. And, of course, the season will kick off here in Alabama.
Yeah.
Yep, and I don't know, a little over a week. So looking forward to that, as always. And
I'm about to go hopefully get the rest of my sequel 33.
That's right, man.
Stuck together.
Yeah, mine's together. I wouldn't call it ready to hunt yet. I still got I like to put a lot of time behind the bow before I go.
I noticed you had your target sitting out there.
Yeah, it's out there, and I've tried to just kind of make sure the Aeroflight is good, and I'm happy with it. Now it's just kind of getting yardages and getting everything dialed in. So hopefully if I can get free from other work stuff, I can get that thing dialed in before this hunt. And maybe bring something home in the process. But
so what are you? What's your main target down there?
Down there,
I mean, are you headed for a buck, or are you just going to shoot the first thing you?
Look,
that
it's
gives
so
you an
funny.
opportunity?
You guys have heard me talk about my buddy Kyle
Yeah.
here several times, and Kyle is the most patient hunter relative to his experience that I've ever met. I mean, he never pulls the trigger, and not that you have to.
Can we get him in the club next to us and see if it'll rub off?
Oh, he'd be all for it. But I'm just like, hey man, you need to, on these types of hunts, it's a fancy way of doing a population control hunt.
Yeah.
And that's what its purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the opportunity to take 3 does and 1 buck, it's because there's an overpopulation. They wouldn't do that if otherwise. So I'm like, hey Kyle, what you gonna shoot, man? We have an opportunity. You a very realistic opportunity to get you your first one. With a bow, and because he's killed some really good deer in Alabama with a gun.
Yeah.
And, just because he's been really selective and smart.
Now, has he been killing those deer out where he lives,
or
or just scattered around?
It's kind of scattered around,
Okay.
but relatively close. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, he's done a great job, and so.
I mean, to be able to take good deer that part of the world.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not an easy deal.
Not at all. And so I'm like, hey, this is a great opportunity to get your first one with a bow. He's like, yeah, I'll probably hold out for just like, dude, the first legal deer that gets within bow range of me is going to get arrow flung at it, man.
Look, and RL said it, I think, today that he was here talking about outfit. Is, man, just get practice killing stuff.
Yep.
But with a bow, with
That's
archery
right.
equipment.
Yep.
Because at which point you get into it enough that you decide to take one of those lifetime hunts, and you haven't had time putting arrows into animals.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That leads to breakdown of the system
for sure. So
the autopilot quits and you freeze and you miss everything.
Yeah. So you guys, you need to help us encourage Kyle to shoot a doe on this trip. Y'all just leave us some comments or something like that, and tell Kyle he needs to kill a doe on this trip. And
he needs to let the air out of the first legal deer that walks by. And hey, the funny thing is, most folks that I've hunted with, when they do that, they get some type of crazy opportunity within like minutes.
Oh no,
that's at a great deer, and you're like, that would never ever happen for me.
Well, that was his rebuttal. He was like, "Yeah, I know, man, but I would hate to shoot, like a basket rack little 6 or something like that, and then have a monster come out after or shoot a doe and then have a big." And I'm like, dude, who cares?
Yeah, you can shoot 3 does in a buck. Shoot the doe. Shoot the first doe you see, and then you've got time on your side there a little bit.
Exactly. And
y'all are hunting 2 days or 2.5.
So we would get down there on the 17th, and you can start hunting at noon. So we'll have the 17th, 18th, the 19th, and then we have until noon on the 20th.
Okay, so you've actually got 3 full days of hunting.
Yep, and got 2 half days to travel.
Yeah, you got 2 half days to make a.
And so we haven't scouted. There are some designated scout days that come along with these SOA hunts.
Yep.
And of course, this place is
4
hours, from here, so we're not going to be able to make that trek. But basically, the plan is be ready to go in the gate at 12. Go find us, go scout as much as we can, and then get in a tree for the evening and try to make it happen. And it's fun, y'all. I know that the more we promote SOAs, the lower my odds are getting selected because more people apply. But it really is kind of a cool opportunity because you get a chance to hunt somewhere that you wouldn't normally get to hunt, and you have a very limited time. So there is this challenge of as a hunter, can I figure out where the deer are? Can we figure out? Can we? And it's like this game you get to play. So it's kind of fun.
It's almost like a competition. You see some of these folks have actual hunting competition, which we ought to get all the sponsors together and do something.
That would be super fun.
Maybe a pig hunt or something.
Oh man, we gotta get Randy over here. we got to get Randy. He's going to be on the podcast soon. We just got he is a very busy dude, and we got stuff going on too. But hopefully, we get Randy on here pretty soon.
Well, he should be busy because the way it sounds, Darton is really pushing the envelope on some of these.
They are, man, and it's. I think that as long as they've been around, I don't know that they've had a better image than they do right now.
Right now,
it just seems like they are.
I would imagine that probably a big part due to good leadership.
Yeah, I
don't know anything about Darton in the past.
Yeah, they're.
I know they've been around forever.
They have, and I really think that Darton becoming part of the Black Eagle and Conquest, that whole family of archery products, is just a major win for the sport of archery and bow hunting altogether. They're doing
I know
some really cool
it's
things.
not like we're an archery shop that sells hundreds of bows a year, but we've had several people pick up some Dartons.
Yeah,
friends of ours.
Yep,
that
that's right.
Have talked to us through shooting them, and you and I both have been fanboys of another another manufacturer, but
yep,
I can go pick up my Prelude even from last year, and it's a fairly stiff draw cycle. I got used to it and I like it, but I can go pick it up, step out on the porch. My target is 57 yards, and I can shoot a baseball size group at that, and I dang near can't see a baseball that far anymore.
Right.
So I've reached my limit with my vision, so I can shoot as good as I can see.
Well, and that's what what I appreciate about them is as a bow hunter or an archer, all you really can ask is that I want the equipment that I have to outshoot my abilities, and I mean these have easily they outshoot what I'm capable of, as an archer. So, anyways, but yeah, we're excited for the season coming up. Can't wait to get started. We may all have some animals on the ground.
I
the
think
weekend,
Matt and I are going to try to get together and hunt. Depending on the wind setup, how some deer are acting on camera, I may forego hunting and try to film Matt shoot a
That's
buck.
awful nice of you.
Well, look, I don't have anything worth chasing right now on camera, so it would be shooting a doe or nothing, for me right at the moment. But if he's got one of those decent deer on camera, we may camp out on him.
There you go. That'd be awesome too. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We know we went a little longer than normal, but we appreciate your support. If you haven't already, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which, by the way, we're like, not that it's like a major accomplishment, but we got like 1,000 followers on TikTok now, which is kind of.
And I don't know what TikTok is.
So we're on there. And then YouTube, obviously, check us out there. We're going to be bringing a little bit more content to the YouTube channel that's not just the podcast. We're going to have some stuff that's in the field and obviously filming some hunts and those sort of things. So just check it out. Make sure you're subscribed, got your notifications on so that when we do upload stuff, you'll get notified. And
and please recommend it to your friends and family.
Yeah.
And keep growing this thing so we can keep putting out info.
Yeah, we enjoy it. It's not easy to do, but you guys make it worth it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
No, it's been fun.
But we appreciate you. We'll see you on the next one.
Out.